WFYI podcasts are brought to you by Bloomington, Indiana. Experience the holiday season by exploring unique downtown shops and catch one of the many seasonal performances at the Buskirk Chumley Theater. Plan a winter getaway and discover more holiday happenings at visitbloomington.com. WFYI podcasts are brought to you by Foster Success, supporting teens and young adults transitioning out of foster care through their Friendsgiving campaign this holiday season. More at fostersuccess.org.
We're going to take a trip right now. Like we always do about this time.
This is a journey into sound. Break it down.
I'm Kyle Long, and you're listening to Cultural Manifesto. Up first, on this week's show, we'll listen back to my 2015 conversation with the poet, educator, and activist, Nikki Giovanni. She passed away on December 9th at the age of 81.
My job is to tell the truth, and whatever I'm feeling at that moment.
As we approach the end of the year, media outlets including NPR, Rolling Stone, the New York Times, and Pitchfork are publishing their annual Best of music lists. On the second half of the broadcast, we'll explore the Indiana musicians who created 2024's Best Music. Nikki Giovanni was born in Knoxville, Tennessee on June 7th of 1943, but she grew up largely in the Midwest. At age 4, her family moved to Cincinnati, Ohio. Giovanni self-published her first books in 1968, Black Feeling, Black Talk, and Black Judgment. She'd go on to author over 30 books, including 3 bestsellers. During the 1970s, Giovanni entered the realm of pop culture, appearing often on television programs like the PBS series Soul. And during that time, she also recorded a series of influential albums that bridged spoken word poetry and music. Nikki Giovanni's work often centered on race, gender, and politics. She was a significant figure in the Black arts movement and has been called a queer Black icon. In just a moment, we'll listen back to my 2015 conversation with Nikki Giovanni. But first, let's hear a track from her 1971 album with the New York Community Choir, titled Truth is on Its Way. This is Ego Trippin'.
I am so hip, even my errors are correct. I sailed west to reach east and had to round off the earth as I went. The hair from my head thinned and gold was laid across 3 continents. I am so perfect, so divine, so ethereal, so surreal. I cannot be comprehended except by my permission. I mean, I can fly like a bird in the sky.
That was the poet, educator, and activist, Nikki Giovanni, performing Ego Trippin'. Giovanni died on December 9th at the age of 81. I spoke with Nikki Giovanni in 2015, ahead of her appearance at the Indianapolis Public Library's Fall Festival. We discussed a variety of subjects, including her work in music and her connection to Indianapolis. Giovanni's aunt, Agnes Chapman, lived in Indianapolis during the 1950s and 60s at 548 Drake Street in the Indiana Avenue neighborhood. Agnes Chapman was a teacher at IPS School number 42. We also discussed her long friendship with the Indianapolis author Mari Evans. Let's join my conversation with Nikki Giovanni.
Miss Giovanni, I know you're a native of the Midwest. You grew up in Cincinnati. And I understand that you may have spent some time here in Indianapolis during the 1950s. Is that right?
That's correct. My aunt, Agnes, she was Chapman then, and my uncle, William Chapman, was a dentist there. And they lived in Indianapolis, and of course Indianapolis is only about an hour, maybe an hour and a half from Cincinnati. and we would drive over to see Aunt Agnes.
What were your impressions of Indianapolis during that period?
We thought it was a really big city because even though we lived technically in Cincinnati, we lived in the suburbs. We were out in what is called the Valley of Cincinnati. So going over to see Aunt Agnes and Uncle William was a big trip, and we were excited. We came over to the State Fair, and it was just always fun. There was always something to do, and when you go visit relatives, it's always fun.
And as I mentioned, you'll be speaking here in Indianapolis Saturday, November 21st with the Indianapolis Public Library. The Indianapolis Public Library just honored one of our great Hoosier poets, Mari Evans, with a Lifetime Achievement Award. And I know you participated in Miss Evans' 1983 publication, Black Women Writers, and I wondered if you had any thoughts on her life and work that you'd care to share with us.
Well, Mary is a friend, first of all, and she called me the other day to say I could expect to see her, and I'm glad. We must talk about once or twice a week, every week, just to check in on each other, She'll say, "My sister, how are you doing?" Because we're both, maturing, and so we need each other to check on each other. But of course, Mary is one of America's great poets, and it's always wonderful to be a part of anything that she's doing. I teach here at Virginia Tech, and she came down when we honored Toni Morrison. We sent for Mary to come down and be a part of that. And she's been a part of readings that we've had here. I've known her forever. I mean, we're friends.
I believe her book, I'm a Black Woman, came out around 1970, and that's around the time you started emerging as a writer as well. Was her work an influence on you at all? Were you exposed to it during the early years of your career as a writer?
Well, I wouldn't say, I knew who she was, and of course, she was a little bit ahead of me, a couple of years ahead of me, so we looked at her as one of the established poets. She and, I believe, Lucille Clifton and that group were a little bit, they were maybe 2-3 years ahead of us, maybe a little bit more, and we were just getting out of college and just beginning to, so we thought, wow, this is what I want to do when I grow up.
I did want to ask about a few of your famous works. I really love your poem For Sandra, which I interpret as speaking to the role an artist can play or just the feelings of an artist during periods of social struggle. I know you wrote that poem several decades ago, but I wondered what your thoughts are today on the role of an artist during times of social upheaval and conflict.
I think that artists, all artists in America, but particularly black artists, have always been a voice of our people. And there's been no time, actually, when they haven't. Going back to the spirituals, coming over in Middle Passage, going into jazz. I mean, there's been no greater group of men and women than the jazz singers and the blues singers. And, of course, we're honoring Jill Scott, and we're honoring a number of people lately, the youngsters who are coming up. But the artists have always been, I think more so, if I may, without insulting anybody, more so than the preachers. The artists have been leaders. I mean, where would we be without Miles Davis?
In that poem, you say, maybe I shouldn't write at all, but clean my gun and check my kerosene supply. Perhaps these are not poetic times at all. Are there points in your life where you question or whether you find motivation to write or you feel like you should be engaging in other ways?
Oh, no, as a writer, you look at a number of things, but no, I think that I should write. I think that's what I do. I mean, that'd be like asking Cecily Tyson, should you give up, being an actress,
sure,
or asking Ruby Diaz. No, you do what you do, but you also recognize that there are other things that can be done, and that other people do things that you appreciate.
Another work of yours that I really love, and it never fails to kind of give me an electrical charge when I read it, is The True Import of Present Dialogue.
Yes.
And when you write a work that powerful, I mean, the language is very strong and provocative, and it challenges readers in a very confrontational way. When you write a piece like that, I'm just curious how you feel after you've written this. Are you concerned about publishing it, that it's going to be misinterpreted or get censored or get you in some kind of trouble? Or how do you feel when you write something like that?
Oh, I think that my job is to tell the truth. And whatever I'm feeling at that moment, nobody's going to censor you because you're just a poet, and it's just not what's going to happen. I don't think you can think like that, and I don't think that anybody can think about, oh my goodness, what will somebody say? You're just a poet, and you're trying to say this is what I'm feeling today. Sarah Vaughan says, I'm feeling tired and lonely and haven't slept a wink, I'm drinking black coffee. That doesn't mean that if you went to Sarah's house, you would have black coffee. It meant that she recognizes that there's a time when people are dealing with events in this way.
We've been listening back to my 2015 conversation with Nikki Giovanni. She passed away on December 9th at the age of 81. Let's listen to another classic recording from Nikki Giovanni. This is the title track from her 1973 album, Like a Ripple on a Pond.
When I was born, they sang a song. When I was saved, they sang a song. Remember, I smiled when I'm gone. Remember, I smiled when I'm gone. Sing a good song when I'm gone. We ain't got long to stay. 1 ounce of truth benefits like ripples on a pond. 1 ounce of truth benefits like a ripple on a pond.
That was Nikki Giovanni in the New York Community Choir with Like a Ripple on a Pond. On this week's show, we're listening back to my 2015 interview with Nikki Giovanni. She passed away on December 9th at the age of 81. Let's return to our conversation.
During the 1970s, you released, I believe, 3 albums of spoken word, you reading your poetry with musical accompaniment. On 2 of those albums, you worked with the New York Community Choir, and I believe on the third, you worked with Arif Mardin. Could you tell me why you decided to present your work in this forum, in this medium?
Well, poetry, again, I'm a big fan of Middle Passage, and I study Middle Passage a lot, and lately I've been writing a lot about it. But the spiritual was born in Middle Passage, and so there's no way that you can be a black American and not appreciate the spiritual, not appreciate the not appreciate what that. And I always think of that woman. I always think that was a woman who did that, who is going to be in that boat coming over here to what we know is not going to be a happiness, but what we also know we're going to make an adjustment to. And she had to find a way to say to her people, it's all right. So she brought the spiritual. Ultimately, when we got here, we're going to accept Jesus Christ. Now, other people do other things. This is not, I'm not trying to deal with what religion you have. But ultimately, those people, and most of them, are going to accept Jesus Christ. And so we're going to put those words to that tone. I'm a poet, and so when I start to express myself, I'm putting words without the music. I don't sing. I put words without the music. So when I had an opportunity, which I loved, Ellis Hazlip, who produced the show Soul. So when I had an opportunity, Ellis said to me he owed me a favor. He owed me quite a few favors because I worked for free for him. And he said, well, what would you like? And I said, I would like to do a recording with a gospel group, with a choir. And he said, well, I know a choir. And I said, okay, let's see who. And that's how I met Benny Diggs in the New York Community Choir. We were nominated for an Oscar, for a Grammy. And I was just so thrilled. It was a wonderful, I still like it. Truth is on its way. It's a wonderful, wonderful album, and I still enjoy it.
Yeah, and on that album you recorded a version of Ego Trip, and that's very percussive, and your delivery is very percussive as well. And listening to that now, it certainly feels like it's anticipating the emergence, the cultural emergence of what would become hip-hop music, which a lot of artists like Gil Scott-Heron and the Last Poets were doing in those days. Yeah, what do you think about that? When hip-hop came around, did you feel like this is something that had already been part of the community and you engaged with at some level in your own music making?
Well, I unlike a lot of people, I never thought. One, I don't think that hip hop or rap has to be censored, and so I was glad to see that the community is going to take something that maybe somebody like me helped do, and they're going to take it to another level. And I'm totally thrilled that happened. And I thought that what we want to know is what are the people doing. There was a time I mentioned Miles Davis. There was a time when we had Miles, or we had Bird. There was a time that Charlie Parker is going to be the only saxophone in town, and so he's going to have that tone, and we're all going to sort of listen to him. But as hip hop is coming in, the community, the inner city, is finding its voice, but they're not having instruments to do that with. And so they're using whatever else they have, which is themselves. I think it's fabulous. And I remember, Bill Cosby, who has a lot of other issues right now, and you can video me, Google me on YouTube, when Bill started complaining about the boys wearing their pants long, and as I think he said something about naming their strange names, and just showing that he was crazy. And I knew that you knew that Bill needed to be hospitalized at that point. But it was really interesting to see that the community was in its own state of rebellion. I loved it, and I still love it. I love, I Can't Breathe. I really love Black Lives Matter, and somebody said to me, White Lives Matter. Well, we weren't debating what White Lives Matter, because black people aren't shooting white people down. Black Lives Matter. And we know that young kids sitting in school shouldn't be thrown from their chairs across the table, across the room. So it's time the community has spoken, and then people like me, my job is to be supportive of the community. But I'm not supportive because I'm being made to. I'm supportive because I think the community is right.
And I hope you aren't tired of talking about this, but I did want to ask about your Thug Life tattoo and your appreciation for the work of the great hip-hop poet Tupac Shakur. I think it's fabulous, and I hope you aren't tired of talking about that, but I wondered if you'd have anything to say on that subject.
Oh, Tupac was such a great young man, and it was so hard when he died. Well, he didn't die, when he was murdered. And I just wanted to do something to say to Afeni, and I don't know Afeni, to say to his mother, your son is missed. If I had lived at the beginning and they had put Jesus on the cross, I probably would have done, a tattoo for Jesus, just so Mary would know she wasn't alone. And I felt that way about Afeni. And she wrote a letter to me because the New York Times showed a picture of me doing it, which I had no idea they would do that. They asked, could we photograph you? And I said, oh, my, yes, because I wanted to let her know that Tupac was all of our son. We still listen to that young man. He made an incredible contribution, and he was important. And you just wanted to make a statement that says, we embrace and we love you.
In a prior interview with you, I heard you refer to his murder as almost like a political assassination because of his role as a leader for so many young people.
I don't know why you say almost like.
Sure.
Of course it was a political assassination.
Okay.
What would be a non-political assassination is a 12-year-old boy in Walmart. Where you just shoot him down because somebody, I think he had a gun, whatever. That's not political. But you take a young man who stands on stage and says, vote or die. It was Tupac that started the vote movement. You have to remember what he was doing. And you have to remember these fools that we live with. And they're not all fools, but the ones that are fools carry guns. The NRA should not be running the country.
And lastly, Ms. Giovanni, there's a lot of interest right now in Nina Simone with the recent release of the documentary on her life. I know you worked with Ms. Simone for a period of time trying to assemble a biography of her life. What happened with that project, and is that anything that you would ever revisit, or do you have any thoughts on the current interest in her work?
I have, I don't know how many hours. I have just lots and lots of hours on interviews that I've done with Nina, and they are in my papers, which are in Boston. My papers are at the Boston University, and the chances of me going back and listening, and it's on the old tape. It's tape recorders. So I have her voice and my voice. We would sit in the kitchen. We'd sit in her kitchen or sometimes mine, and we would just go over things, and we talked about a lot of things. Nina's a great woman, and she was a lot of fun, and, of course, I mean, she's Nina Simone, so she is who she is. I wrote the poem, Genie in the Jar, and that turned into an illustrated book. Chris Rashka illustrated that, and we show the little genie because she was a genius. And just an incredibly nice, wonderful person. And again, that's a loss. Nina was a loss, but it was an honor and a privilege to have worked with her.
And it's an honor speaking with you, Ms. Giovanni. And as we end this segment, is there a Nina Simone? Do you have a favorite Nina Simone track you'd like me to play?
Ooh, you caught me off guard. Let me think of my favorite. Sure. My favorite Nina Simone. Of course, I don't want to. Well, now, having said that, I don't mind offending people, but, one of everybody's favorite Nina Simone is Mississippi Goddamn.
Yeah.
Because that really when she did that in Selma, it sent such a message around the world, But then she does, good love songs, too. I don't know what Nina does that isn't wonderful. I really don't. I mean, whatever she's doing, it's really wonderful.
So I can just pick anything out and you'll be happy with that, yeah.
I will be more than happy with that, and I'll have to I'll ask Bridget to tune you in so she'll tell me what you did.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much for taking time to speak with me, Miss Giovanni. It's a huge honor, and I'm looking forward to seeing you here in Indianapolis.
Okay, it's really Nikki. I mean, you keep saying, can I tell you a story?
Sure.
There's a wonderful American writer. Her name is Edwidge Danticat. She wrote The Dew Breaker. She just wrote Untwined. Just a wonderful wonderful writer. And when I got sick, Edwidge sent me a little present just to say get well. And she calls me Miss Giovanni. That's what started this. And she happened to have written me on the day of my sister's birthday. So I wrote her back, and I said, Edwidge, you wrote me, my sister's birthday, September 2nd. I said, you wrote me on the day that my sister was born, and she's been dead now for 10 years. So I need a sister, but you must promise that you will quit calling me Miss Giovanni. I can't have a sister who calls me Miss Giovanni. You have to call me Nikki. So I'm about to say the same thing to you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Nikki. It was a huge honor talking with you, and I'm excited to see you here in Indianapolis. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you then.
Yeah, take care.
Bye-bye.
We've been listening back to my 2015 conversation with the poet, educator, and activist, Nikki Giovanni. She passed away on December 9th at the age of 81. We'll end with music from Nina Simone. Off her 1965 album, Let It All Out, we'll hear Nina Simone performing the Bob Dylan composition, The Ballad of Hollis Brown.
Hollis Brown, he lived on the outside of town. Hollis Brown, he lived on the outside of town with his wife and 5 children and his cabin broken down. Where you look for work and money and you walk the ragged mile.
Cultural Manifesto will return after this short break.
WFYI podcasts are brought to you by Foster Success, supporting teens and young adults transitioning out of foster care through their Friendsgiving campaign this holiday season. More at fostersuccess.org.
I'm Kyle Long, and you're listening to Cultural Manifesto. As we approach the end of the year, media outlets around the country are publishing their annual Best of Music lists. While most of these lists are dominated by pop superstars like Beyoncé and Kendrick Lamar, a handful of Indiana musicians were also represented among the year's best. For the remainder of this week's show, we'll listen to music from these Hoosier artists. And we'll start with the Lafayette, Indiana vocalist Justin Hicks. Along with his sister Jade Hicks and wife Kenita Miller Hicks, Justin is a member of the HawtPlates. In the last few years, Justin has gained notoriety for his work with Michelle Ndegeocello. He was featured on her Grammy-winning 2023 album, The Omnichord Real Book, and he's one of the primary voices on Michelle's latest release, No More Water, The Gospel of James Baldwin. That album was included on NPR's list of the 50 best albums of 2024. We'll hear 2 songs from The Gospel of James Baldwin now, both featuring Justin Hicks on vocals. This is Travel and Pride 2.
Somewhere else to be, I'll stay away with all the work to be done. I'll be bleeding as you bake in the sun. Do I have to be good all the time when I can just leave? How to measure weight like tissue, pressure, fry so long as my don't be made me
That was Michelle Ndege Ocello with Pride 2, featuring Lafayette, Indiana's Justin Hicks on vocals. That track is featured on Michelle's latest release, No More Water, The Gospel of James Baldwin, one of the 50 best albums of 2024, according to NPR Music. And we're listening to music from Indiana artists featured on 2024 Best of Music lists. Up next, we'll hear music from Hobart, Indiana's Omar Apollo. Omar is a rising star in pop music, but in a conversation I recorded with him earlier this year, he told me life wasn't easy growing up gay and the son of Mexican immigrants in Indiana.
I mean, I definitely had like this paranoia of not being able to be myself in that area. You know, on top of being queer and on top of being Mexican, it was like, oh, where are you from? Where, you know, and I'm just like, I'm from here. They're like, no, where are you really from? And I'm like, I'm from here. I'm American. I was born in America. But, you know, obviously my parents are from Jalisco and, well, they're from Zapopan and Guadalajara. But honestly, there was a lot of racism, especially to my parents. I mean, I could speak English like fluently. So there was like a lot of, you know, tiny nuanced things I had to deal with being, you know, Mexican, but also like from a religious family, and then dealing with being queer is like really complex. There's a lot of layers to it, but ultimately I just wanted to make music. I don't really care. I mean, this is just how I am. I can't change it. So I'm not intimidated or anything like that.
Omar Apollo's critically acclaimed album, God Said No, was named the 6th best album of 2024 by Variety and appeared at number 59 on Rolling Stone's list of the 100 best albums of 2024. We'll hear a pair of tracks from God Said No. This is Done With You and Dispose of Me.
Love don't make it right. So what? I'm so done with you, done with you, done with you, done with you, done. I'm done with you, done with you, done with you, done with you, done. I'm so done with you, done with you, done with you, done with you, done. I'm done with you, done with you, done with you, done with you, done. Yeah. You can leave me for 25 days, 25 months. You can leave me for 25 years, I'll never give up. We got too much history, so don't just dispose of me. Can we try again?
That was Hobart, Indiana's Omar Apollo with Dispose of Me from his 2024 album, God Said No, named one of the best albums of the year by Rolling Stone and Variety. Up next, we'll hear music from the Gary, Indiana rapper Freddie Gibbs. His latest album, You Only Die Once, was listed among the 50 best albums of 2024 by Complex Magazine. Freddie Gibbs also appeared on the critically acclaimed album Crybaby from the R&B vocalist Ray Khalil. Crybaby was included on NPR's list of the best 50 albums of 2024. Gibbs was featured on the track Carpinteria, and we'll hear that song now.
Cracking tall trees, now I vacation the Maldives. Big Willie, big diamond rabbit, the silliest. The more you keep on moving, the more exposed the get. I'm riding in that who you dipping with. Living single, Khadijah, that the only I was living with. Got her in the club crying, call me soon as the liquor hit. Last one ain't had no class, so I had to dismiss the gone. Trick or treat up, like Houdini. I'm out the door before a kids up. Ain't nobody see me. I feel like Bruce Wayne, gunmetal, blue Lamborghini. I'm blowing drove behind a limo till ain't nobody see me. It's Freddie Kane.
I'm Kyle Long, and you're listening to Cultural Manifesto. We're listening to music from Indiana artists featured on Best of 2024 music lists. We just heard music from the Gary, Indiana rapper Freddie Gibbs. And up next, we'll hear music from the Gary, Indiana electronic music producer, Jlin. Her critically acclaimed album, A Coma, appeared on Pitchfork's list of the best 50 albums of 2024. And the track, Precision of Infinity, was selected by NPR as one of the best songs of 2024. Jlin's A Coma album also appeared on Best Of lists from Pop Matters, Resident Advisor, Uncut, Slant, and others. Jlin's A Coma featured guest collaborations from heavyweight names in contemporary music. And we'll hear two examples now. Up first, we'll listen to Jlin and Philip Glass with Precision of Infinity. After that, we'll hear Borealis featuring Bjork. That was Gary, Indiana's Jlin with Borealis, featuring Bjork. That's all the time we have for this week. Check out the Cultural Manifesto podcast at WFYI.org or wherever you listen to podcasts. Cultural Manifesto is hosted and produced by me, Kyle Long. Thank you for listening.
WFYI podcasts are brought to you by Bloomington, Indiana. Experience the holiday season by exploring unique downtown shops and catch one of the many seasonal performances at the Buskirk Chumley Theater. Plan a winter getaway and discover more holiday happenings at visitbloomington.com.